Clara Whitlock had run the Lone Mesa Post Office for nearly 6 years. Ever since her father's arthritis made sorting mail and lifting crates too painful for his aging hands. The building was small, warm in winter, hot as a stove in summer, and quiet almost every day of the year. Cowboys weren't known for writing much more than supply orders, and ranch wives sent letters only when family back east demanded news. But Clara loved her little post office. It was steady, predictable, comforting. That comfort shattered the day she found the first letter. It was tucked in the bottom of the outgoing sack. No name, no address, just to the woman I'm too afraid to meet, written in strong, slanted handwriting. Curious, she opened it. Technically, she shouldn't have, but something in the phrasing felt more like a confession than a posted message. Inside, the words stunned her. I pass the post office each morning just to catch a glimpse of you. I reckon you don't know me, and perhaps it's better that way. I am a man of dust and saddle leather more, comfortable with horses than people. But someday, if courage finds me, I hope to say hello. Clara reread it 3 times. A man passed her window every morning. She tried to remember faces, but all mornings blended into a blur of dust, hoofbeats and riders hurrying through town. 2 days later, another letter appeared. The way your hair catches the morning sun could stop a stampede. A week later, another. I practice my words before I ride by, but they scatter like scared quail. Clara knew she should be disturbed some nameless cowboy riding by, watching her, but the letters weren't unsettling. They were gentle, tender, almost shy. She felt warmth in her chest, where loneliness usually lived. She started looking out the window, watching riders come and go, men tipping their hats, ranch hands racing wagons, and one she noticed now who always slowed his horse when passing her. Window tall, broad-shouldered, dusty hat pulled low. Was that him? Clara found herself smiling at the thought. By the 10th letter, she was hopelessly tangled in curiosity, and something deeper, something that felt like the first flutter of spring. She wrote back. She didn't know where to leave it, but she tried. To the cowboy who can write poetry on a torn scrap of paper better than most men speak, with full breath, I wish I knew your name. She placed it in the same outgoing sack where his letters always appeared, hoping he returned to the scene of his confessions. And he did. The next morning, a new letter awaited her. This time, it wasn't signed anonymously. My name is Eli McCrae, and I'm ready to stop hiding. Clara arrived early the next morning, half excited, half terrified. What did one say to a man whose heart she'd already read on paper? She tried to focus on sorting telegram slips and stamping parcels, but every hoofbeat outside the window made her breath hitch. He didn't come that morning, nor the next, but on the 3rd morning, the bell above her door chimed. A tall cowboy stepped inside, broad shoulders, sun-beaten skin, dark hair falling beneath a dusty hat. She recognized him immediately. The slow rider, the one who always lingered near her window. Eli McCrae. He held something in his hand, another letter. Miss Whitlock. His voice was low and warm, the kind that seemed to settle into a person's bones. I think this one's for you. He placed the folded paper on her counter, but didn't turn to leave. Instead, he shifted his weight like a man fighting himself. You don't have to read it now, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Or ever, just thought. After writing so many, maybe I ought to give one in person. Clara's heart fluttered. I'd like to read it. He nodded once and stepped back. Clara opened it carefully. Standing in front of you feels like holding the reins of a wild horse, scary, exhilarating, and real. I don't expect you to feel anything for a man you've barely met, but I want you to know that every word I wrote came from a place I didn't think still existed in me. Her cheeks warmed. She looked at him. Eli, your letters, they were beautiful, easy to write. When a man's far away, he murmured. Harder when he's standing 10 feet from the prettiest woman on the frontier. She laughed softly, surprised at the compliment and the courage behind it. If all of this is too much, he went on, I can ride on. I won't trouble you anymore. Clara shook her head. You're not troubling me. Hope broke across his face like dawn. Over the next week, Eli visited the post office daily, sometimes to drop off a letter, sometimes to pick one up, sometimes to say nothing at all, just stand near the door with a shy smile that unraveled Clara more each day. Their conversations grew longer. Their silences grew warmer. Clara realized she liked the way he studied her. Like every word she spoke was something precious. But trouble brewed on the horizon. A rancher named Dobbs, who'd long wanted Clara's attention, didn't take kindly to seeing Eli around. He'd already made crude comments about her cowboy admirer, and Clara feared conflict. But fear couldn't stop the way her heart leaned toward Eli. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mesa, Eli rode up and dismounted. "Clara," he said, voice steady despite the worry in his eyes, "I think it's time I told you why I never meant to send those letters." And she knew everything was about to change. Eli stood on the porch of the post office, hat in hand, twisting the brim between his fingers. The fading sun painted his shoulders gold, but his eyes were shadowed with secrets. "I never sent those letters," he said quietly, "because I didn't think a woman like you should get tied to a man like me." Clara stepped closer. "What kind of man are you, Eli?" "The kind who's made enemies," he said, "and the kind who's been running from M." He leaned against the porch post, the boards creaking under his weight. "3 years ago, I worked for the Dobbs Ranch." Clara's chest tightened. "I tried to expose something he was doing, running stolen cattle across state lines. He blamed me, spread lies, said I was the thief. Some folks believed him." Clara swallowed hard. "Dobbs was powerful around Lone Mesa and mean. I left town before things got ugly. Told myself I'd never stay anywhere long. But then," Eli hesitated, "then I saw you, first day back in town. You were sorting mail by the window, humming to yourself. I hadn't heard something that gentle in years." Her heart clenched. "Eli, I didn't want to drag trouble to your doorstep, so I stayed back. Wrote what I felt, but never meant to hand him over. I just needed a place to put the words." Clara stepped even closer, close enough to smell the leather and sun on him. "You're not trouble," she whispered. "Dobbs is." Eli's jaw tightened. "He's been spreading talk, saying you ought to stay away from me, saying a man like me shouldn't be walking through town." Clara's pulse spiked with anger. "He doesn't get to decide who I speak to." Eli searched her face. "You sure you want to keep seeing me? 'Cause if Dobbs pushes this, it might get messy." Clara lifted her chin. "Eli McRae, I've read your heart, and I trust it." He exhaled shakily, like her words had lifted a weight he'd been carrying too long. He reached for her hand slowly, asking permission. She gave it. Warmth surged up Clara's arm. "I don't want to hide anymore," he said. "Not from him, not from you." Before Clara could answer, quick footsteps sounded on the street. Sheriff Briggs strode toward them, hand on his belt. "Evenin', Clara McRae." He nodded stiffly at Eli. "Rancher Dobbs came in, yellin' you were causin' trouble. I told him I'd check in." Eli stiffened. Clara squeezed his hand. The sheriff lowered his voice. "Between you two, Dobbs is looking for a fight. Keep your heads down." Clara glanced at Eli. "We're not hiding." The sheriff sighed. "Then be ready. Dobbs ain't the forgiving type." He walked away, leaving silence and tension behind. Eli looked at Clara with something fierce and protective burning in his eyes. "Whatever comes," he murmured, "I'll stand by you." And Clara knew this wasn't just paper-born affection anymore. This was real. Clara had never known fear like the days that followed. Not fear of Eli, but fear of the storm circling them. Dobbs watched the post office like a wolf watches a doe, waiting for a moment to strike. His ranch hands whispered threats. His foreman threw insults at Eli whenever they crossed paths. Even customers started avoiding the front door when Eli visited. Eli tried to stay calm for Clara's sake, but his temper had edged sharp ones. One afternoon, Clara stepped outside for fresh air, just as Dobbs himself rode up. The man was built like a bull, red-faced and sweating from the ride. His eyes narrowed at her. "You lost them because you stole them," Clara snapped, Before she could stop herself, Dobbs slid off his horse, boots thudding on the ground. "Watch yourself, girl." Eli stepped out of the post office doorway like a storm breaking. "Leave her be," he growled. Dobbs smirked. "There he is. The letter-writing coward." Eli's fists clenched at his sides. "You know I didn't take your cattle. You just needed someone to blame." Dobbs took a step forward. "And what are you gonna do about it, boy? Write me a poem." Clara grabbed Eli's sleeve, but it was too late. Dobbs shoved him hard. Eli steadied himself, but didn't strike back. "Coward," Dobbs spat. Eli breathed in slow, fighting for control. "I ain't hittin' you unless you touch her." Dobbs reached for Clara's arm. Eli swung. The punch cracked through the street. Dobbs staggered, shocked as blood bloomed on his lip. "You'll regret that," Dobbs roared, pointing a trembling finger at Clara. "Both of you will." He stomped off, climbing into his saddle. Dust exploded beneath the horse's hooves as he rode away. Clara trembled. "Eli, what now?" Eli wiped sweat from his brow. Now, we finish this." That night, he saddled his horse. Clara begged him not to go confront Dobbs alone. But Eli kissed her forehead, gentle lingering, and promised he'd return by dawn. Dawn came. Eli didn't. By noon, rain clouds formed heavy and bruised above the horizon. Clara's heart pounded with each passing minute. Then, the door burst open. Sheriff Briggs rushed inside. "Clara, we found Eli at the old canyon road." Dobbs and two of his boys cornered him. Clara's stomach dropped. "Is he alive?" "Barely," the sheriff said. "He asked for you." Clara grabbed her shawl and raced for the sheriff's horse. Nothing mattered now, except getting to Eli. Not the letters, not the danger, not Dobbs, just Eli. And the words she needed to finally say. Rain fell in cold sheets as the sheriff and Clara raced toward the canyon road. Mud splashed their boots. Lightning cracked across the sky. Clara clung to the saddle horn, praying, whispering Eli's name like a lifeline. When they arrived, she saw him immediately propped against a rock, shirt torn, blood staining the dirt. The sight nearly shattered her. "Eli." She rushed to him, dropping to her knees. He lifted his head, eyes barely open, but when he saw her, he smiled, weak but real. "Clara," he breathed, voice frayed at the edges. "Didn't want you to see me like this." "I don't care," she choked out, brushing mud-wet hair from his forehead. "I'm here now." Sheriff Briggs knelt beside them. "We scared Dobbs off. He'll be answering to the judge soon." He looked at Eli. "You hang on, son." "I'll try," Eli murmured, his gaze locked on Clara as though she were the last star in the night sky. Clara gripped his hand. "Eli McCrae, you listen to me. You don't get to leave me, after all those letters." He huffed a faint laugh that sounded like pain and affection tangled together. "Didn't think you'd ever read I read every word," she whispered. "And I fell for every one." His fingers curled weakly around hers. "Clara, I wanted to write you a last letter, just in case." "No," she said fiercely. "You're not writing a last anything." But Eli reached into his vest pocket, pulling out a folded, rain-spotted page. He placed it in her hands. With trembling fingers, Clara opened it. "If you're reading this, then I wasn't brave enough. But loving you even from a distance was the best thing I ever did. If I get another sunrise, I want it beside you." Tears blurred the ink. "Eli," she sobbed, "you will have another sunrise. I promise." He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing through the pain. Then, with effort, he lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. "Clara, if I live, would you let me court you proper? No hiding, no fear." She leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his. "Yes, yes, Eli. I want all of it. Every sunrise." The sheriff helped Eli onto a wagon, headed back to town for the doctor. Clara stayed by his side the entire way, never letting go of his hand. Days passed. Eli healed slowly, stubbornly, with Clara at his bedside, reading his own letters back to him, teasing him, loving him through every bruise. One afternoon, weeks later, he stood on the post office porch with her hand in his. "You saved my life," he whispered. You saved mine first, she said, smiling. With your words. Eli leaned down, kissed her soft and sure, sealing what had begun in ink and grown in fire. Clara never found another anonymous letter in the outgoing mail sack again. She didn't need to. She had the man behind them live brave and hers. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.